We're just gonna go.
Guys, it's me. I'm back.
What's up, party people?
We're like, Mads, come on.
What's going on, everyone? Welcome to a banger of a show for you that we got today. Fred Klinshaw is our guest. We got the clip of the week. We got some golden tickets. We got my picks. We're going to jump right into the show, but I do want to brag a little bit because my fantasy team is in first place, right where it should be. And so that's the week's off to a good start. I'm feeling really good. So as a reminder, you can subscribe to our podcast so you never miss an episode, whether it's on Spotify, Amazon, Apple, YouTube, or wherever you. Rafi's got some technical difficulties already. Anyway, we're gonna jump right into the show and get started. Chris, how you doing, man?
I'm good. I've a little technical difficulties myself, and I think we're back. So tell me, I want to learn more this fantasy. Who are you against? You're in first place. Like, are you first place out of the whole world, or like? Fill us in here a little bit for those of us that don't participate in fantasy. What do you got?
Well, my good friend Parday's over here on the sidelines, and if we're in the same league, I'd probably be schooling him too. But I'm not playing against the entire world. I'm actually playing with a number of people from around the country, mostly people from Boston. So there's a lot of wicked pisses.
And wicked pisses, I like.
And they, nonsense and they talk a lot of trash. It's a couple of friends that I spent time in grad school with, and the rest of them are their friends. So.
No, I want to know who I'm rooting for when I'm rooting for you to win, to beat them. What do you win? Like, is it bragging rights? Is there a trophy that you guys pass along? What do you get when you win?
Yeah,
the season?
there's some bragging rights. There's some trophy. There's some money.
I think
if we all lived in the same area of the country, I think there'd be a little bit more of a punishment for somebody.
That's good.
But today it's just bragging rights and some money. So.
Okay, as long as you're feeling good, make a little change. I think that's great. Good for you. Congrats. I think it's fun.
All right. Yeah. Well, I don't know what Taylor Swift did, but I want to thank her because Travis Kelce's he's playing back where he should be, and he's helping lead my team to victory, and I feel really good about that. So, what's going on with you?
You know, it's cold. I don't know. This is what's happening. I guess it's supposed to be this time of year. Winter's coming on, and it's great. Fishing is actually, I can't say it's picked up, but fishing's been good where I'm at. And I don't know, getting ready. People keep talking about the holidays. There's this thing called Halloween tomorrow. And you got Halloween plans? Because we got kids. I still have 2 at the house, and they have like 10, 12 kids coming over. They're high school, so it could be mellow. It could be mischievous. I don't know. What, you got any plans?
Yeah, I've adopted your timelines, and we're going to pull out of all of our Christmas decorations and start decorating the next day.
That's what I'm telling you. My daughter and wife are like, let's get the Christmas bins down. Let's go. I told them, let's put up the Christmas tree for Halloween because they have that whole Nightmare Before Christmas. Jackson. I'm like, let's just put it up. I got to put this stuff up anyway. Why would I wait? Just enjoy it longer. But no, we got Halloween quickly one day, and then we'll get right into Christmas. Let's do it. This year I'm going for it. Holiday spirit, like, why not? There's this thing called the election that everybody's all mad. Like, I'm focusing. We're talking Christmas, so I'm happy to be looking at that.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny how we've all turned to the election. We're a couple weeks away, and I mean couple days away, whatever.
It's coming.
I live in California. The vote's already been determined.
Your vote, the votes probably don't matter a whole lot over, but it's still like we should all be talking about things that are important. I don't know if we can go. Can we talk about that for a second? I think there's one thing that came out, like knowing presidential candidates. I think it's important to know. For me, it kind of hit a chord. Joe Rogan had on Donald Trump, and Donald Trump was talking about having enough water in our whole state to do anything we wanted. And he mentioned a couple small fish or some small fish up in the Delta was keeping them from taking all the water and sending it south. And I was like, oh, wait, this is like the Delta tunnels and taking all the fresh water. So I think it's important to like understand your candidate, because we all get put in these village tribes of like, no matter what, I'm for this person or I'm for that person. Get to know the policies. Donald Trump, it sounded like he may be talking about taking more water from the Delta, which would really affect the fishery. So all I can say is get to know the true policies that affect you locally, support local, and then, be considerate. pick the person that's best for you, and we'll all get along.
Yeah, for sure. So, listen, let's. I'd like
But
to
being Castaic Lake, I don't know. Maybe does Castaic? I'm curious. Does that take water from the? Is that water coming down from Northern California? Does that go through Castaic?
Don't ask me. I don't know these things.
It's on the grapevine.
Listen.
You got the aqueduct. I'm excited. I think they may get Colorado water. I think that's how they got the striper in there, maybe from the Delta. So we got the lake's best angler on the show. I'm excited. So.
Oh wait, no. Hold on a second. Let's get really clear about something. The lake's best angler was me.
Yeah, well, that's what I thought. The show is you, and you and I are on the show. So the lake's best angler. I'm talking to you.
Yeah.
But maybe we have somebody that spent a couple more hours on the water, maybe a couple extra days. But we'll see. Did you fish this week?
I did not fish this week.
Did you get out and fish?
I think I'm fishing maybe next week. I don't know. But let's get on to our guest. So our guest today is my Jedi Master, and what can I say about this man? He's my Jedi Master. He is the Castaic Lake's best fishing guide. I said it, he didn't. So all the haters out there, I said it. Let's give a big warm welcome to the Hammer of Fury, Fred Klinshaw.
Fred Klinshaw.
What's up, guys?
How you doing,
man?
Oh, I think you need to turn down your volume.
On my volume?
Yeah.
Oh, shoot. Okay.
Can you
How's
hear
that?
me? Do you have headphones?
I do not.
We're going to hear this echo the whole time.
Can we fix it?
I don't know.
It was. Talk about technical difficulty.
Sound check.
Hold on.
It wasn't doing that on the sound check, was it?
Nope.
All right, we'll figure this one out. Yeah, it's strange. We don't have an echo really when he's talking. It's more when Rick's talking back through his speaker, back through the microphone.
Yeah, and I hear it when I speak.
We had the lake's best angler. I'm so excited.
I'm not even going to get to find out why he's called the Hammer of Fury.
No, we're gonna.
I think it may be somebody else's microphone because I hear the typing. Who's typing in your office, Rick? Is Rafi typing or somebody typing?
Let's see.
Because I think it's
good?
their mic. Yeah, their microphone that was. Yeah, I think it was Rafi or somebody else.
All right, we're good.
What about
we're
now?
Good.
Oh, good.
We're good. Okay, so we'll start all over. My guest today is none other than Fred Klinshaw, the Hammer of Fury.
Yeah. Thanks, guys.
All right,
Thanks.
All right. Well, give it a round of applause.
Yeah.
Right.
So, Fred, first tell me how the Hammer of Fury became.
Oh, it's a good story. So when I got my first Instagram page, you know how certain people have an Instagram page for their dog, and it's like based on their dog. Okay, some people will have Instagram page on their dog or something, and it's like the dog's talking to you or the dog's posting. Well, I did one on my shotgun, and I named my shotgun the Hammer of Fury because we're gonna go duck hunting. I'm gonna break out the Hammer of Fury today on them. And so my first I don't know, probably about 15 or 20 posts were things that my shotgun was doing. Like it was hunting, it was getting cleaned, it was traveling, it was doing stuff like that. And then I started adding some fishing pictures, and that got a conversation going with the fishing. So actually, my shotgun is the Hammer of Fury, not me.
All right, good to know. Good to know. All right, so by way of introduction to everyone that's listening, you have been, I committed to going out twice a month. And fishing because, I work in this industry and, everyone asks, why don't you fish more? And I tell them because I'm running a fishing company. And so I committed to going out twice a month, and we've gone out twice. Yeah. And so how long have you been a guide on Castaic?
Okay, so just to go back, I'll kind of do like a quick background introduction.
Yeah.
I I fished all my life, mostly saltwater as a kid because I grew up on the beach surfing, fishing, and a little bit of bird hunting. And I was a saltwater bass fisherman, calico bass, sand bass, spotties, the whole thing, and kind of cut my teeth saltwater fishing. But Lake Casitas is closest to my house, and I caught my first fish ever at Lake Casitas. So, but freshwater was always one of those things where it was like we did it, day trip or camping or picnicking or something like that. Saltwater was my thing. And then I'm old enough to remember the 90s, and when Lake Casitas was the world famous big bass fishery. I decided to go try this out and got some big swim baits. I got an osprey line through and an old hardhead Castaic swim bait in a trout pattern. And the first week I did that, I could not believe what I saw. It was it was incredible. I had followers that were probably teeners at the time, and
Wow.
the first fish I caught on that bait was a 9-pounder, and then I caught an 11.2 in the same week. And I was just hooked. I was like, this is better than any calico fishing. I mean, just like gangster stuff's happening. You got bass just chasing the lure and fighting over it, and they're big and crazy. So that went on. I was taking my little saltwater skiff to the lake. It was before we had to do any tagging or anything, and it was one rod, 2 baits all the time. I just threw big baits the whole time. And after months and months, maybe even a year, the dock talk you have with the local guys and stuff, they're catching the same fish as I was catching, but they're getting them on maybe spinner baits or jigs or whatnot. And I'm like, well, I haven't caught a fish in the last 8 times I've been out. I have a lot of action, a lot of followers, and these fish that these guys are catching are the same. So I needed to step up my game and start learning these other techniques. Blah, blah, blah. That turned into tournaments. I did very well in the tournaments, and I've always had it in the back of my mind I wanted to be a guide, so I started guiding 10 years ago at Lake Casitas. And that went for about 5 years, and then I expanded the operation to Castaic and Lake Pyramid, 2 lakes that I've fished my whole life, but I'm closer to Casitas, so that's kind of where I did the first 5 years of my guide career. And I've been a guide total 10 years.
What was your first guide trip like?
Oh, my first one? Oh, man, I almost threw up the night before, I swear.
That's funny.
It was funny. I had a 17-foot nitro at the time, an older nitro. And the guys were really cool. We talked a little bit on the phone, and they were really excited. And, it was springtime, so I go, we'll put these guys on fish. I was pretty excited. They show up, and the kid was like 350 pounds. The dad was like 300 pounds.
Oh,
and,
nice.
And, I'm looking at them come down the dock, and the dock's moving, and they get on my 17-foot nitro, and the boat's listing. And right from the get-go, I was like, oh my God, I don't even have enough room in my boat for these guys, They were awesome. We made it happen. And by the end of the day, we were all friends. But I just remember the night before, I couldn't sleep. I was super nervous. And, we caught some bass. It was springtime, they were on beds, it was fun.
That's cool. And what do you need to do to become a guide? Just decide one day to be a guide?
Yeah, I've always had it in the back of my mind that I would be a saltwater guide, like a Benny Florentino down south or something like that, and do the calico thing. And I thought about it, and it just doesn't pencil out as well, considering maintenance and the boat price itself. And, when you leave from the dock when you're freshwater fishing, you could be fishing in less than 5 minutes, where a lot of times you're going to do the island. A 30-minute to an hour run, and weather permitting, you're typically in a smaller boat, and you're going to cancel a lot of days. So I decided to do freshwater, and I love it. It's so much fun because I'm not only just taking some guys who could fish, I'm taking a lot of first timers who've never even caught a fish before, and families. Yeah, I have 3 boats, so I've got 2 20-foot bass boats, and I got a big pontoon boat, so I can cover just about anything that's thrown at me as far as people.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
What?
I have so many questions. Yeah, I want to know. Like, give us some horror stories. Like, what's the worst thing that's happened as a guide? Because weather permitting, you talk about the ocean. I'm a big fan of the ocean and knowing like inclement weather. let's maybe start with that. Like, what's a bad inclement weather story? You ever think you're going to, drown, flip the boat, sink a boat, lightning? Give us some insight. I want to hear some juice.
So really the only thing I'll cancel for, and we just canceled yesterday, is for wind. It just makes it uncomfortable. And, you decrease the safety of the trip when there's a lot of wind, so that's pretty much, if it's rain and it's pouring and the client doesn't want to go, we won't go. And, but I'll go, I've got gear for them. And if they want to go, we've had some incredible days, as you guys know, in the rain, the fish are wet. They don't care. It's usually low pressure, not a lot of wind, so it's going to be a good day. But wind is pretty much the only thing. We're like, in saltwater, you got wind, you got waves, you got so many variables, so the freshwater thing worked out better for me.
How about people swimming? Anybody fall off your boat in 10 years?
Oh man, I don't want to jinx it. I think Rick and I talked about that before. Nobody's ever fallen off.
Oh, that's good. Well, they'll fall in next week, so that's good. So it's fine.
As long as it's not me.
There's been. Let me just put it this way. There's been a couple of days that were very, very hot days, and they might have fallen in, and I may have had to save them.
Right,
but as far as like for somebody's fallen in, it has not happened yet.
Now, what about rod donations? How many combos have you donated to the fishing gods when you're out with your clients?
Only a few. Yeah.
Oh, that's good. That's good.
Yeah, talking where they snap or they get pulled over or something.
Yeah, just dropping them, mess with the fish, kicking it, turn around. Like, I don't know, I started with 8 today and I'm down to 6. Like, having children, I've donated a lot of gear just in our local lake, but I just imagine you lose some stuff.
Yeah, it's been a small handful, and not too many. There's one that accidentally walked off, and I called them. They had their rods with them, so they grabbed mine. It was kind of the same. It was a non-issue, but a couple break. They get snagged, they high stick it, break it, or a tip gets broken or something like that. They reel the fish all the way to the tip, try to bounce it in, and it breaks the rod tip off or something.
I might have broken a rod last week.
Maybe.
Yeah.
He doesn't know yet. Fred.
Yeah, you did break a rod last
I did. Chris, I thought I hooked into a big one and I missed it and I snapped the rod over my knee.
No, for real.
I swear to God. And we caught it. We got it on video. I was so pissed. I threw it down. I picked it up and I snapped it over my knee.
No, that's good. He's invested. That's good.
Thankfully it was mine, not his.
Hey, $50. Isn't it a $50 replacement? No questions asked. So we're all good.
No questions asked.
That's right.
Bunker stick warranty.
We got you. That's good. Yeah. I love it. So as a guide, obviously bringing first timers out, I love that idea. Tell me some success stories of people that you've known that have started fishing with you, that have stayed in contact, maybe that have continued on with their fishing experience. Do you have any stories of that?
Yeah, there's a lot of them actually. It's pretty common. There's been quite a few clients of mine who have actually gone on to buy bass boats, and I see them on the water, which I think is pretty cool. Yeah, I think it's really cool. Then you see him. One client in particular, he started with me, then he brought his family, then his wife, and then they ended up buying a smaller Ranger boat. And I see him at Casitas all the time. They fish a lot, and they even enter the local derbies and have done fairly decent, and cool. That's really cool. Yeah, there's a lot of little kids that 10 years. If they were 10, now they're 20. Now they're booking trips without their parents. There's a lot of that. Awesome. Yeah, I love it. It's the best job I've ever by far.
So,
go ahead, Rick.
No, go ahead.
No, I'm excited because I've driven. I'm just going to tell you, I have 6 kids. The oldest in their 30s, the youngest is my daughter. We got 13. Passing Pyramid Lake a million times going to Disneyland. I was born down in Cucamonga, so I'm a Southern California guy. I've never really fished for bass down there. How is Pyramid compared to Castaic? How do you pair up the two? Because I think you and Rick were going to do Pyramid the other day, but when I drive by it, there's always waves and it's always windy. And it was windy the other day. Yeah.
It was a little too windy. I really, really, really wanted to go because it was biting, but it was just, I got there first, called him. He hadn't come up the hill yet. I said, just go to Castaic. The two lakes as far as aesthetics are completely different. It's more of a it's right in the middle of the Los Padres National Forest. It's heavy trees and mountains and brush all around. You'll see deer. The water's actually, as far as square feet of the lake or acres, square acres, it's smaller but deeper. And it sees you guys were talking earlier before I came on about the aqueduct water. That lake sees the aqueduct water before Castaic does.
Right.
So
no, I actually read when I asked Rick, I clicked on an AI answer. Like I can go in the Delta. Not that I would pee in the Delta to get to you, but I could actually, whatever comes through the Delta to fish in, you get that tail end of the west end of the Delta. So it's interesting.
Yeah. So that lake has a lot of interesting feed for the fish as well. That doesn't quite make it. A little bit might make it, but not as much down to Castaic. Like it has American shad in it. Yeah. Which are big, and the stripers love them, and the stripers get bigger there. There's log perch. There's like some freshwater prawns. There's just tons of crawdads. There's threadfin shad. There's what is it called? A Sacramento black perch, I think, or Sacramento blackfish.
Yeah, I don't know. I actually don't know what that one is. I know they have the Sacramento. There's like a pike. There's all kinds of strange things that have wrecked all kinds of other lakes and different waterways, and the Eel River suffered from that. But it sounds like that Pyramid Lake and those other lakes have done fine with all the forage it's coming down to, especially the striper. They'll pretty much eat anything. Yeah. Are the stripers bigger in the first lake?
I think that the average one is like a schoolie size could be a 5-pounder, where a Castaic right now, the schoolie size is probably like a 2-pounder, right. 2 to 3.
Oh, that's interesting.
But last year, there was some 30-pounders caught out of that lake.
Damn.
Yeah. So,
big striper.
Big stripers. They're Castaic. I think the lake record is over 30. I'd have to double check. In fact, I just asked the guy who caught it I think Rick, you were with me at Castaic. Mm-hmm. Yeah, the guy who had it. I don't remember what he said it was, but it was big. But that was Castaic back in the day. It's fished a little bit more. It's a little easier to get to, so the fish are harvested a lot more than Pyramid.
Right. Yeah, it's interesting. I've been heavily involved in understanding more about biology and all that. How do you rate, just a personal opinion, of how's bass fishing been in the last 10 years? Is it better at these lakes? Are there more bass? Has the size gone down? Just give me an idea of what you think. I was told by a biologist to get your feelings out of it and test the bass, the relative weight, that's kind of question 2. But what do you think? Is fishing better? Or, give us some insight.
Okay. Well, let me use Casitas as an example, because Casitas isn't fed by any source of water other than runoff, rain, and in the 90s, people were coming from all over the world to fish that lake because it had big bass in it. I think it still holds 4 of the 10 largest bass ever caught in the world out of it.
We were feeding those out of our budget, out of our taxes. We were feeding those things, these nice little trout that were really high fat profile, great food. We did a good job with that.
Probably, but I don't know if a weekly, now that's debatable, because I don't know if a weekly trout plant can sustain the sized fish that were in there. I think there might have been still, let's see, that would have been 90, 50, 60. So the lake was 40 years old, I guess, at that, or 30 years old at that point, probably coming out of that tail end of a new lake effect.
Yep.
The lake had just filled up capacity prior to that, a decade or two. And the bass, there was 18-pounders, 16-pounders, 15-pounders. Most fish, it was easier to get something around 10 pounds, but there were the 15s, 16s, and 17s.
Crazy.
Yeah, but then we went into a big drought, so the lake got down to about 29% a few years ago, and I fished it from its heyday all the way down to the lowest it's ever gotten, and then this year it filled to 100% again. Wow! But it was down. It was down to in the 20-30% range for about 15 years. So the shoreline basically became a jungle. In fact, they thought they almost wrote the lake off as never going to come back up, and they were going to put that frisbee golf courses and stuff along the shoreline, and they were already planning on what they could do for recreation, because camping and recreation is what the lake makes its money on, not the fishermen. And then last year we filled the lake up, and filled it up in spring when they were on beds, about 35 feet. So all the fish were on beds in 30 feet of water.
Wow.
And they weren't really messed with, I mean, there was a very low mortality. There wasn't fishermen, beating up the beds. There wasn't birds. There wasn't much eaten or messing with these fish. They basically spawned undisturbed. And so this year, earlier in the year, or later last year in the fall, the lake was plugged full of 8 to 10 inch bass. Plugged. I mean, schools of them. They look like shad on the meter. I got the forward facing sonar, and you could see them, and it looked like shad. It was crazy. It was great for me because what I was doing was with the kids, I would put a donkey rig on. They got 2 every cast.
That's fun.
So
that's cool.
yeah, so 2 10-inch bass on 4-pound trout gear, and
awesome.
It's
time of your life.
We had 100 fish days on a 4-hour trip, and
oh my God.
everybody's a hero, nuts, but they were smaller. And then this year, the bigs started happening. So all these 8 to 10-inch bass are now legal bass to 2 pounds. They're growing so fast because we had that new lake effect. And I don't know if your viewers know about the new lake effect, but in a nutshell, it's when the lake's been down so long, you have an ecosystem on the land. And when the water floods that, now all the worms, the rats, anything you could think of has been flooded.
That's food. Yeah, that's
brush.
all food. That's fun.
It's food, all the way from photoplankton all the way to zooplankton. So everything's being fed, and at a rapid rate. So a lot of these fish that typically would probably grow an inch or 2 every year, 10 to 12 inches their first year of life, and maybe even a few inches after that, and double the weight. Every fish we're catching there is just fat, thick, big shoulders, thick tail. And so you might get a fish that's 1.5 pounds that's 12 inches, 11 inches or something like that. So what I'm getting at now is look at some of these weights that these tournaments went through in the summer. It took almost 28 pounds to win. Yeah. There was, 28, 26 pounds. If you had a 20-pound bag 5 years ago, you walked away with it. It was a 16-pound bag. I won on that lake with a 16-pound bag before, you couldn't do it anymore now. You got to have something 18 to 20 pounds just to be in the top 5 with 28 pounds winning. So where did these fish come from? You got that new lake effect. You had all this small bass. And you guys, I'm going to warn you, I'm going to jump all over the place here. But
I love it. It's good.
Yeah. So the 8 times this season, we've had fish that were about 1 pound, 1.5 pounds ripped off by a big bass at Lake Casitas. 2 of them we landed and weighed them, and they were over 7.5 pounds. I had one that literally grabbed the bass, it shook off, grabbed it again, and then grabbed it and took it down and ripped it off. And I'm estimating that fish was well over double digit.
Wow.
Where were these fish a few years ago? I mean, it's and we haven't had any trout plants in the last couple of years.
No, I mean you're talking about that new lake effect. You have that phytoplankton, zooplankton that's feeding the small fish. Those baby bass are doing good. That bass are apex predators. They just eat each other. I mean, you talk about fry balls, bait balls.
It's not only baby bass, the crappie, the bluegill.
Yeah, but everything else is doing well.
They just nuts. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Some of my Instagram posts, you can see these first timers nets full of bluegill that are just nuclear. Last year we caught the lake record bluegill, and
I wanted to ask you that. It's funny because your lakes, that's not indicative of normally like a good bass fishery. Like I'm thinking of a bass fishery where we're at, and we're like, oh, we got to get rid of these crappie. We got to, like a kid just caught like a 15-pound catfish. We're like all these things that are detrimental to lakes that are suffering from forage. I looked at your Instagram page and people are like multi-species champions. Like all these fish are looking healthy. They're like, who in the world would want to have striper in a landlocked lake, and those striper cannot get out to the ocean? So they're resident striper, knowing that every pound of striper, that fish that's 1 pound, needs 5 pounds of food. So you got a 30-pound striper. That thing's eating 150 pounds of forage to stay alive. Not to mention your bass are also growing. So you just have this abundance of nutrients and food, which it's phenomenal to see that. So that's exciting.
But the future will tell. We'll see what happens with this because the food will run out at some point. And you've been Chris, you've been studying a little bit of the biology. I mean, what have they been saying? That, what is it, like 10 pounds per acre needs to be removed from a lake?
Yeah, minimum, and that's the whole part of these spawns. And undisturbed spawns sounds great for a lot of bass, and as long as it's turning into food. But really, too many bass, like specifically like Lake Biwa, it's mandatory in Japan now, catch and kill only. So it's getting a lot harder to catch bass. But you look at the bass that are coming out of that lake. Yep. You're talking about limiting the amount of mouths to eat the food. So our lake here is distinctively, it's like 51, 52 years old. So it's past that new lake. It's kind of rounded that corner of a lot of sediment. The food forage availability is kind of down. So we start looking like, is there cormorants? Are there freshwater otters? What's eating the food? Because now we got to be really careful of how much food we have. You guys are in a whole different boat because you're still that new lake.
Interesting. Interesting. Yeah.
That's kind of cool. It's fun. And then I put that back to that whole idea of like, what do we do as anglers? And it's fun because I started this idea of having a relative weight tournament. Nobody wants to talk about it. Nobody wants to talk about if their fish are healthy. And it's a kind of frustrating thing in the world of fishing, where if you talk to people that are harvesting deer, they do not want their deer to be sickly. And this whole wildlife management of there's too many coyotes, and so you take care of coyotes or wolves or whatever. In fishing, we just want to go out and catch fish. I've not met a person yet. Like I had a 6-pound fish the other day for the first time in a while in the lake, and I measured it. It should be 7.2. So that fish it's skinny. It's sad. It's like, but I don't want to have that thought when I catch a 6-pound fish. I want to be like, this is awesome. This is so fun. But once you start to learn that, man, that fish is 10 pounds of forage food underweight. That's just a bummer to have those experiences. And then it puts pressure. What do you do as an angler? Like do you have people that catch fish and then do they get to take them home, or you just catch and release only as a guide?
That's a touchy one. The stripers, I encourage them to eat the stripers. They're delicious. There's plenty of them, and they grow rapidly. Yeah. Fish and Game set regs for a reason. I mean, everybody's entitled to take 5 bass home that are over 12 inches at Lake Casitas. And occasionally I get people who say, I want to take some bass home. I don't try to talk them out of it, but I tell them I normally throw them back. And I just leave it at, I try to encourage them that bluegills and crappies taste a lot better than largemouth bass. But at the same time, I've had largemouth bass and they're not that bad. I mean, there's a lot of fish that are better, but they're not.
Sure.
If you beer batter it and put it in a fish taco, it's delicious. But it's not something we're continually taking out of the lake.
Yeah, that's interesting. No, it's good. I mean, it's kind of interesting too, whether you go to the ocean and then you got the spotted bass crowd and all these different fish that you're like calico bass and things that taste delicious. That genre of fishing and that mentality, it becomes catch and release only as well. And it's like, no, you can't keep those things. You almost get beat up at the coast. You're like going out Long Beach or whatever and fishing in kayaks, and everyone's like, you kept a fish? And you're like, yeah, it's from the ocean.
Yeah,
like,
and that's funny because when I was a kid, the limit was 10. Calico bass was 12 inches, limit was 10, and the sport boats would get mad if you tried to throw them back.
Right.
And they're still here. They're still here, and they're still doing fine, And that was day in, day out, these local boats going out every single day and hammering these bass, And,
right.
I don't know. I've never been on a boat in the ocean where they haven't kept the fish.
Yeah. It's a sport mentality. It's almost like the swim bait crowd, Southern California, the spotties and all that. Like I've got to learn a lot of that from this fish socks and the connection to these anglers. And it's a passion. They don't want to eat the fish. They just want to go out and have a good time. So I appreciate that value.
Yeah.
Give me some insight, like with Rick coming out. So this is the inside. Rick can't hear us. You got this pressure. I think it's kind of fun. Like I've had some people come fish with me, and when I fish with other people's baits, it's like, oh my gosh, I'm almost more nervous, and I love that excitement of like wanting it to be successful. When you have a client like Rick. So here's Rick, MONSTERBASS CEO, comes out. Do you feel pressure? Like, do you want him to succeed? What does that feel like when you have a client like Rick?
I want everybody to succeed. I mean, I'm serious about that. I want everybody to succeed, even the first timer. And success is judged on their skill level. I mean, a first timer comes out, they're gonna catch their biggest, most PB, everything that day. And so when Rick came out, I was pretty confident we were going to catch fish. I mean, him and I clicked like immediately. Wouldn't you agree, Rick? It was like it was
for
cool.
Sure.
We were like in the first 5 minutes, we were cutting it up pretty good. The fishing at Castaic at that time when he came out was it was quantity, not quality, with a couple mixed in of quality, you know.
Sure.
And the day before, I had Daniel, who runs USA Demiki. We got on this school of fish. We found this bait. We kind of knew what it was doing. We knew what the fish were going to do. And it was probably 15 to 1, 15 kind of smaller fish to one good one. So, yeah, we would have needed, I mean, we caught 4 that day. So, I mean, I probably caught 60 bass that day. That was with Daniel the day before. So we went right back to that same spot with Rick. I think we tried a couple other spots as well.
We did.
The fish were there. We saw them. But the bait did exactly what it did the day before. It was like, I told Rick, I said, you watch this. When the sun comes up, the shade's going to get closer to shore. That bait's going to pile up in that shade, and these bass are just going to hammer it. And that's exactly what they did. But the only problem is every bait we threw, we got a small one.
Right.
But it was fun nonetheless.
Yeah,
it was really fun. We caught a lot of fish, you know.
Yeah.
We went fishing, and we caught a lot of fish. It was great.
Yeah, I mean, that's all that really mattered for me. I mean, I just wanted to get out there and catch some fish. So
yeah, you were commenting that you're kind of knocking the dust off anyway, right? You know, It was just kind of getting fishing. It was fun. We had a blast, you know. The second trip was a little bit better though.
Second trip was exciting, especially when so Chris, we had the drone up and we're making this run. And he's like, I'm going to get the drone to catch up. And all of a sudden you see Fred go, hold on. And he just 90-degree angle, turns the boat and makes a beeline straight towards the birds dropping or whatever it was. He can probably tell you better than I can.
Right. It was a striper foamer. And they had the bait pushed up on the shore. And cool. And I'm coaching. I usually, like, when I see that, I start speaking in tongues. Nobody understands me. I'm going too fast, just grunting and pointing and stuff. But I kept my composure, and I was telling Rick, remember, I was like, okay, keep your composure. Grab that rod right there. Get ready. And when I tell you to cast, I didn't have the boat stopped yet. And I told him to cast. He made a absolutely perfect cast, and he hooked a beautiful striper in that boil.
Yeah, it was awesome. It was so good.
Yeah, on a top.
Were there birds that you noticed going towards that feeding frenzy? Because that's something fun for the listeners that are here, like when they're involved. And we see that on the Delta all the time. Is you'll have these striper that pull up, and they're not line shy, they're not bait shy. They'll pretty much eat anything that's happened to fall in the water there. But did you key into birds, or did you see the fish on the surface boiling?
It was a little bit of both. And by the way, Rick was the only one out of any of the boats that got one on that boil too, which was I was pretty proud of. You know, there was 2 guys on it. One of the other guides saw it at the same time. We both turned, and without any communication, we were just on it. He came to my right. I pushed Rick in the center, and he was on instantly. And the other 2 boats, I don't know if you heard them, they were grinding. Oh, damn it! You know? Anyway, and it was a nice fish, an 8-pound fish or something like that. You know. So, but there's 3 birds I keep an eye on. Is the grebes.
Grebes.
The grebes. Those are they're a diving bird you see swimming, you know, on the surface, and they dive, and they're very fast underwater, but they're more of a shad eater, right? There was terns, which was really cool. The terns were there, but seagulls on stripers. If there's seagulls diving, you better go, because
that's a lot.
They're not a diver. They're only getting, you know, what they can
surface
get.
Fish. Yeah, no, right. They're scooping surface fish, so that's cool.
Super easy meal. So there's only one way they're getting that super easy meal. It's stripers or largemouth down there just killing something, you know. That's and cool. So I saw that first, and then I saw a couple of chips, and then I saw literally whitewater splashing up. And I didn't say a word. I just flipped a 90, and we left it. Cool. I didn't even ask. I kind of left the drone where it was. I was just like, we're going, you know.
That's cool.
It worked out. Yeah.
Yeah, that was a fun day. That was a fun day. I even caught the drone.
There was a lot of shad all over the lake, and it was kind of in a transition where the bait was getting pushed into the backs of coves and along the bluffs, which made it really, really fun. Bait was flying on the shore and flying out of the water, and it was really compressed up against the walls at This was Castaic, and they have some very vertical 90-degree walls, and the bait will get pushed, and you'll just literally, it looks like somebody's throwing buckets of shit against the wall. Yeah.
No, it's cool. I mean, it's fun to have that experience. And Rick and I have been talking to people about this is what's supposed to happen in this fall transition. And these small fish can move up in the shallows and the big fish can push them. And for Rick to be able to talk about that week after week and then to go and experience it with a guide and have that happen, that's pretty awesome. I mean, that's kind of what we want.
They chronicled it. I mean, they got some, I think they got some fantastic footage of that.
Yeah, we'll have it later this week.
Oh, that's great. Fun. I can't.
Yeah, what do you say, like, just the average person that just got their first monster bass box, they got some baits, they're going to go fish for the first time. You experience first-time anglers often, it sounds like. What do you put in the hand of a first-time person? Because I'm like you, I just want everyone to catch fish. I don't care who it is, how long they've been fishing. What do you hand somebody to go and hopefully have the best chance to catch their first fish? And I know you're going to fish the conditions and it's kind of tough, but just a general thing of like, hey, you're heading out to the lake for your first time. Try this first. Do you have a bait that you can say?
Yeah. So before we even get into the bait, we got to make sure that they can cast. That's going to determine what we're going to do. So sometimes, I mean, I had a client who had never fished before. I gave him a 5-minute tutorial, and within an hour, it looked like he'd been fishing 20 years. So that's cool. He can fish a topwater. He can fish a lot of things. And there's just some people who just can't do it. I mean, it just takes them a while. It doesn't mean they'll never be able to do it, but they just can't do it. So maybe they're going to drag a worm. Maybe they're going to hover a bass tricks, in 30 feet of water. And, there's a lot of options that we can do. But I really have to see their skill level and what they're capable of and what their potential might be by the end. Because if they can't cast and I'm trying to teach them, and they have an 8-hour trip, I don't want to spend their whole 8 hours just teaching them how to cast, unless that's what they want to do. And I've had trips like that where they're like, I don't even want to, I'm not worried about catching a fish whatsoever. I want to learn how to tie a knot. I want to learn how to put the line through the spinning reel, through the guides. I want to learn how to cast. And I'm like, let's do it. I mean, it's going to be a life lesson. They're going to carry on beyond catching fish that day, And I think those are good trips too.
That's cool.
So as the water gets colder, how does bait selection change?
We're right now. So we touched a little bit, and I saw Chris talk about the fall transition where the bait's getting pushed up into the coves and the walls and stuff. It's kind of turning the other way now. So we're kind of chasing it down, and you still have those balls of shad, but it happened this week overnight. I mean, we were in 5 feet of water. And then the very next day, I couldn't find those fish. I was kind of bummed out a little bit. And then we found them, and they were in 30 to 60. Let's just say that. So our topwater jerkbait bite, whatever, fluke bite turned into a spoon bite. And and it turned into a spoon bite, which was fine. Once we figured that out, we got on fish, and it was fun. And which is equally as fun as I'm concerned. I mean, catching a fish out of 40 feet of water that's pulling straight down is pretty fun.
Yeah. You mentioned Demiki. That was my first connection with the tailspin. They make some amazing baits, and that's that one when they get down 30, 40 feet. I mean, that's a blast to catch them. I love spoons, flutter spoons, but it's interesting of like. It was weird even where I'm at is that transition. There was really no long drawn out fall. It's like summer continued on forever. It got cool. And then all of a sudden we had like one night went to 39 degrees. And it's the second the water felt that next day, there wasn't a fish inside of 12 feet to be seen.
Yeah. And that was wild.
Dropped off.
Yeah. It was overnight, literally overnight. And that you have to be able to adapt for that. I mean, it's like, you can't just keep banging your head and with this, say topwater lure that you caught him yesterday in the backs of coves with, you got to start hunting and looking and be patient and take your time. It's fishing, and then start venturing out. I mean, if they're in 40 feet of water in 100 feet, that's where you got to fish them. I mean, it's just what you got to do, and you have to be open-minded, I guess is what I'm just trying to say.
Yeah, let me ask you this one. Yeah, how important now as a guide is, because in the past to find a fish at 40 feet, knowing it's in 100 feet, you have to have some connection to these fish. But how important has forward-facing sonar become for you as a guide? How often is that tool relied on? How much better has it made it? I mean, for me, I'm like, that's incredible to be able to see the fish live interacting with people's baits. But from a perspective of you with the guide, how's that changed your game?
I absolutely love it. I love forward-facing sonar. I mean, but I still need my up and down right next to it. I need to have both meters right next to each other. I mean, there's a lot of fish you're going to miss on the forward facing if you don't have the up and down next to it.
I call it down. I call it downward facing sonar. Like I tell everyone, like, no, it's downward.
There you go. Yeah,
that's all it is. It's like you got forward facing, you have downward facing. Like you're like, oh, I don't want to use forward. I'm like, well, you're using the one that points straight down. Like, what's the difference? But no, it's funny.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, and I agree with you. It is, because when I'm spooning, I'm looking at my up and down, and I can see the spoon in there. Just see
you can you've always been able to make heartbeats as you're drifting with your boat, and it's like, I know it's not the same, and it's not exactly as fast, but you're fishing a couple seconds ago, and you're still using downward facing sonar. So, but to have that forward facing, what a cool tool to be able to show people, to say like I've always said, like, if it helps fishing, what a cool tool. But if it helps get somebody else on fish and helps them become more successful as an angler, like, what an essential piece of equipment as a guide. That's awesome.
Yeah. So it is essential now, because especially like when we get into this winter time with the two tools, I'll just call them tools because that's what they are. You can determine the thermocline just like that. It's with your up and down, you can still figure it out. But now you can see these fish, like they'll chase a lure and then turn
and stop. Then it's like, no, it's too cold, too hot.
Okay. Yeah, exactly. So okay, my thermocline's from 20 to 40 now. So if I'm fishing in 40, I'm on the ground. It's just it's a great tool, and it's immediate. You could figure that stuff out immediate. So as far as me getting people on fish, it cuts the time in half or more. And I'm multi-species, so the forward-facing you might see in the Delta with some schooling fish, it's incredible. I mean, the forward-facing, I don't even know how I caught stripers without it before. It's I can get on a school, and now I could follow it. It could be 30 feet, 40 feet in front of me, and it's taught me these fish were okay. I found this school 30 yards from shore off of a bluff on a wall, and the fish have now moved off, and I've been following for a quarter mile. They might be straight out in the middle of the lake a quarter mile, where I would never even looked for those fish out there before. And we're catching them in the whole way. You keep casting in front of them, and you could kind of follow them. But believe it or not, crappie are the same way. Casitas,
I was going to say, I learned that with Eric from UFO Baits. We went out and fished, and you're like, why are the crappie not by anything? And he's like, oh, they're right there. And then we turn, and then we're just following this crappie ball across the lake. Like you're saying, I was like, they're like locusts. They're just swimming through and eating everything in their way.
Yeah.
And
you think they need to be a brush or a tree or a brush?
Yeah, I thought for sure, they'll be by that buoy line or something. But no, they're just, and then having that tool, you're just kind of meandering and following. And it's funny because you're like, oh yeah, there is some current, there is some wind. Mm-hmm. Of course, these fish are being pushed, and they're also just kind of relocating, like you're saying. Like maybe they know the sun is moving and they're going towards this other peninsula. But it is a cool tool to be able to follow them that way. So that's fun to see that.
Yeah, the largemouth too. I mean, we've caught a lot of open water largemouth now. With the hovering baits in 30 feet. During the cleanse after the spring. There's fish out in the middle of the lake just sitting out there. That's stuff we've never fished 10 years ago. Yeah,
those are tournament winners. That's what the guys like. We never fished out there. It's like, yeah, because the production value of like just casting blind, you didn't have a good success rate. Now
you remember the term, you take a kid out, she was throwing on the wrong side of the boat and catching them. And now it's not the wrong side of the boat anymore.
No, that's my wife has proven that. She's the drop shot queen, and I'll be fishing along the shore, and then she's just kind of bored, and there's too many weeds, and she just casts deep. And I don't care what time of year it is. There's always a fish that's out there. So no, it's kind of cool to see that all come together. And then to have a tool that you can look at it and watch it and tell people like, hey, Rick, cast 40 feet off to the right. That's the fun part of it.
Yeah, we were doing plenty of that. It's so much fun.
So good. Yeah, literally fishing. I fished topwater the entire day the second time.
That's cool.
It's so much fun.
Yeah, so much fun. Yeah,
loved it.
How much? So people that are thinking about being a guide, this is kind of fun. So Fred, how often do you get to fish as a guide when you have clients? Because I think these are the things that people don't understand this. They're like, oh, I want to be a fishing guide because I'm going to fish every day, all day long. Tell some people, what's it like? How often do you fish?
Well, it's the same as like sport boats, and my son, my oldest boy is a sport boat captain. So he does the same thing. When you have a day off or vacation, you go fishing because you haven't fished in a long time.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. So, a lot of times I'll get a client, and are you in Northern California? Is that where
I'm
you're
in
at?
Northern. Yeah, I'm Sacramento. We're actually above Sacramento, and it's
Okay.
Auburn. So, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I like to go up there and hire guides like in the Motherlode Lakes and stuff. And yeah, and that's my vacation, is going up there and fishing. And when I hire a guide, I've hired guides up there, Texas, lots of different places. I tell the guy, this is going to be the easiest trip you've ever did. Just fish with me. Let's put a big bag together. Let's just go fishing, you know?
Yeah.
Well, I get that too. I get guys, there's been some FLW pros that got on. There's people on vacation coming out, and they're by themselves. Hey, fish with me. Let's have a good time. Rick did the same thing. We have a blast. It just becomes a fun day of two guys.
Totally.
That's how Rick and I so fast. I mean, it was just like we were buds after a little bit, just fishing, talking, doing our thing, But
I love it. That's how, when I told Rick, I was like, hey, have him fish. Like, so some guides are like, they won't touch it. And then I've heard some horror stories where the guide will have to prove his method before he lets his clients fish. And I'm like, that's a disaster. But for me, if I can get 2 rods in the water and maybe 2 different baits, and you're proving something and figuring out a pattern, and maybe you're tweaking the color or the profile size, to me, that's like, we're going to have a way better day. So like, you better have a rod in the water if I'm fishing, but that's the beauty.
Yeah.
But knowing the average guide, I think that's that misnomer, is people don't really realize you're not fishing when you're a guide.
I'm
you're
not
guiding.
fishing.
You're
Yeah.
I had a great
I'm not-
yeah, my buddies they were fly fishing guides. I never understood really. We were drift boating, and he's like, "Yeah, I'll take you drift boating." I'm like, "Oh, cool. We're gonna both go and fish." And then he's just on the oars the whole day.
Yeah.
And we're drifting down a river, and I was like, he's actually keeping me from drowning, but then he's putting me exactly in the right drift spots, and he never got to touch a rod. And so it's just kind of like open. It's like, man, this is really opening my eyes to this. What do you? I know you obviously still like fishing, and it's hard to equate. Where do you find that joy level of seeing somebody else catch a fish versus your fish? Because I'm like a 20-year Scoutmaster, had a lot of kids. I can't say it's the same joy. It's a different level of joy, but to me, it's almost just as great as if I get to watch somebody catch a fish. Do you feel that? Because the answer is pretty obvious, but I want to hear it from you. What do you feel when somebody else is catching fish?
Yeah. Wholeheartedly. I mean, I've been fishing a long time, and it becomes where I get more satisfaction. In fact, if I'm fishing with the client and I catch a big one, I genuinely feel bad. I'm like, I wish they would have caught that fish, no matter how they feel about it. I got a regular client. I caught a big bass with him this spring. I felt horrible. He's high-fiving and hugging, and we're taking pictures, and it was a great moment. But really, I wanted him to catch that fish. If you look on my Instagram page, there's very little pictures of me holding fish. It's all the clients. I love to celebrate the client. But I wanted to touch back on something you were talking about a little while ago, about the guide fishing and the horror stories. I don't typically fish, but there's occasions where sometimes you'll get guys on the boat and they're good anglers, but they're from, I don't know, let's just say they're from Texas, okay? And they left Texas on a really good square bill bite, and now they're on the West Coast. First time they've ever fished a deep water reservoir. A lot of lakes in Texas, you're lucky to find. Well, it's like Clear Lake. You're lucky to find like 20 feet.
Right.
And Casitas has got 300 feet of water. In the wintertime, it could be 29 degrees, 32 degrees in the morning, and the fish are down 40 to 60 feet. Slow roll spinnerbait, you might get one. You're not going to get one on a square bill, so you might make a suggestion to these guys. Hey, this is probably what we should do. Well, I've had clients go, no, I'm going to do this. And it's like, they're going to do a half-day trip. And I'm like, I know we can get a fish. I know we can get a fish on a jig, or whatever, a drop shot or a Texas rig or something like that. And 2 hours into the trip, they're looking at you like, why haven't I caught a fish yet? And I'm like, well, why don't you do this? Try this. No, put us on some fish. And I'm like, okay. So I pick up a Texas rig, I flip it out, I stick 3 fish in front of them. And they start going, oh, maybe we should go to that. But then I put the rod down. I don't keep going. Sometimes you got to motivate them a little that way.
Yeah, no,
not a lot, but there's been those instances,
That's cool.
But yeah, but just to go back, I typically don't fish as well unless the client asks me to.
I wanted to, you two have a lot in common, actually. And and Fred, you started in surfing.
Yeah.
You were designing surfboards.
Come on.
I was a surfboard manufacturer from
That's awesome.
For 12 years.
Yeah. So I'm the announcer of the Maverick Surf Festival. I invented a thing called the Smart Screw for your center fin. It fits the FCS tool. So instead of doing like a flathead screwdriver, I invented that like 10, 12 years ago. But yeah, I've surfed a bunch my whole life and Northern California stuff. That's way cool.
Yeah.
Who did you shaping boards? Who'd you shape for? Was it under your own brand or someone else?
I go shape for Clyde Beatty sometimes, but it was under my own name. I was in a couple of local surf shops, but so it's funny because I might have told Rick this. When I was younger, I wanted to be a pro surfer, and that didn't happen. I got sponsored as a fishing pro by Salty Crew. Now I know a bunch of pro surfers and have surfed with them.
For sure. That's cool.
It's so funny how that happens,
So have you do you cross paths with Todd Klein that's down there?
Oh, I know Todd Klein very well.
Oh, cool. Yeah, no, him and I both work with Akuma. He announces. I mean, he's doing, I think, the U.S. Open just a little bit ago.
I figured I saw the Akuma, and you said you're an announcer. I go, you definitely know Todd.
It's way cool. For sure. Good crew. No, that's just the fun. It's funny. It's like, do you make your own baits? Because having the artistic side, because I painted a lot, done Posca art and stuff on surfboards, and I tied my own flies. Do you mess around with your baits? Tell us a little bit about your little custom tweaks you do as a guide.
Well, I mean, when I was doing the swim bait thing initially for freshwater, I was whittling baits all the time and tweaking them out and stuff. Yeah, and I did that a lot. I made a lot of hard baits. I found out that it's just easier to buy them. It's a lot of time, a lot of stuff. It's just easier to buy them.
We let guys like Rick figure that out. Like, come on, Rick, just take this bait, reverse engineer it, make it work, and just figure it out. No, it's good.
Yeah. I've used to put crawdads in plaster Paris and then pour them and try to tweak those out and stuff.
Wow.
And do some fun stuff like that. I poured worms and stuff, but it's just easier to buy them. It was fun. Yeah, it's way.
Yeah, I mean, come on.
Well, and then at the same thing is I make like a dozen worms that took me a while to make because I'm pouring them in like a little mold that I made that you can only pour 2 at a time. Right. And then you start losing them and you start getting bummed. You're like, oh God, and I could just go buy a pack of worms for $10 or something,
I tried that and I honestly was fishing the worm. I found myself fishing worms that were kind of ripped and performing less because I was trying to preserve my worm. I'm like, that's stupid. Like I'm compromising potential bites because I'm trying to save my worm. It's like, I could do art some other way. So I figured I gave up on that. So it's funny.
So, I've wrapped rods, I've made baits, the whole thing. I mean, prior to this, my profession I guess you'd call my real job before this job was, it was a fabricator. So I'm a welder, machinist, electrician. So, and that parlayed into the custom car world and got into that a bit and did that for actually longer than I probably should have. I had some projects that I had to tie up, and then once I did, I just did not want to do it anymore. I still have the custom cars, but I'm just not into it like I was before, And the surfing is still the same way. I went to Fiji 5-6 years ago with Salty Crew, and that might have been, that was a good trip. And we surfed our asses off. We fished every morning. We surfed in the midday when the winds were down, and then
did you surf? Was it Namatu or Tavarua, or where'd you guys go?
Motu, yeah, we were in Namotu, and we surfed Cloud Break, Namotu lefts, swimming pools, and we never got to fish or surf restaurants because Maury Boogie was on that island, and
funny.
They had
they sponged you out of the island. That's messed up.
Yeah, there was like 30 of them,
That's
and then
funny.
we fished Cloud Break though. That was pretty.
Oh, cool. I wanted to ask, like, how was the fishing there? Because like going on those trips, I always see like the Hobgood brothers, and they're catching these monster fish, and they're feeding everybody, and it looks incredible. How was it? Did you catch some fish?
Yeah, I was with the Hobgoods. It was great.
Oh,
it was it was incredible. It was a trip of a lifetime. The offshore stuff wasn't what I thought it was going to be because at that time we were catching cow tuna in San Diego, and then eventually right here in the Channel Islands off the coast of Ventura. But the reef popping stuff for like the GTs and the Blue Stars and the reef bass and stuff, I would fly there just to go do that. It was incredible, you know.
So tell me this. I wanted to ask, like, people talk about taking out bass fishermen that are guides in the ocean, and the specific nature of like casting exactly on the fish versus going in the ocean and chumming and just kind of almost accidentally catching fish. Are you a better ocean angler because of your time spent freshwater fishing?
I don't think you'll get a big argument from too many people that freshwater bass fishermen become fantastic saltwater fishermen.
That's
and saltwater fishermen, when they go into the freshwater bass world, have a lot to learn. They'll learn it fast. They'll learn it quick because they're fishermen. A fisherman's a fisherman. I mean, I could fly fish, I could fish saltwater, I could fish freshwater. You know, a fisherman's a fisherman. But the freshwater bass is so technical. I mean, just like we spoke earlier, you know, we went from a bite, and this happens in saltwater too. We went from a bite to the very next day, that bite not being there and having to adjust. Well, you know, when I go saltwater fishing, I'm typically with 3 rods, you know. So, people laugh because you look at a bass fisherman's deck and he's got like 10 rods, you know. You got everything from 4-pound spinning rod all the way up to 20-pound, you know, 65-pound braid, you know, and sometimes you need that, you know, because you don't know if that bite's going to be the same the next day. You know, you hope it is, but a lot of times it's not. So
yeah, that's sometimes a daunting journey for people. That's what I always try to tell people. Like, you mentioned it specifically. You said we had a bite one day and it was off and gone the next day. And that, I feel so bad when a person is stuck on the shore and they love to fish and they go back to their spot that they caught some fish. And specifically at our lake, is you had these shoreline people that could catch fish 2 weeks ago consistently. And now they have to go out on the end of the courtesy dock to hopefully fish in 20 feet of water. And if they're chasing what worked a week ago, they're done. Their fishing's over. And then they're depressed. They're like, I've been skunked 4 times, and they're mad. And it's like, it's not the fish's fault. Like, the fish have literally moved. You're fishing in an empty bathtub for 200 yards of this shoreline. You need to know that the fish have moved out. But that's you know, that's kind of what hopefully the shows like this help people understand. And a guy like you that's taking out people and showing them and explaining. How often do you recommend? I mean, if I went somewhere new, I didn't do it in Florida when I went, and I actually caught some fish and it was okay. If you're on a journey of fishing, what would you give somebody a guideline? How often should they take a guide? What do you talk about? Like, and I know it's a weird plug, like, oh, book with me, but I think there's some merit with that of like, if you want to learn a new area is one thing, but also just seeing new techniques. Give some insight to that.
Yeah. So, I mean, I hire guides. Guides hire guides all the time. Because they know, you know, like Ryan Cook, you know, I used to fish with Ryan Cook a lot before he passed away, but I didn't need to bring a thing. And why would I? He had Melones and all that, you know, he had it wired. So I would just drive up in my truck, stay for a few days, and get on his boat, and he'd have everything lined out. Not to say that you or I couldn't figure out that bite in time, but we had fish the first 5 minutes after the outboard was turned off. You know, I mean, it's because he's on it, you know, more bang for your buck. I know everybody can't afford a guide, but I would recommend using them as much as you possibly can, unless it's your home lake, you know. And that's another thing that I do too, is I take a lot of people fishing on Casitas, which is their home lake, but they've been off for a month. I fish every single day. I have 1 day off a week, so I'm in tune with what's going on in these places. And you know, you're paying me to take you fishing. I'm not going to hold the cards. I'm going to give it up. It's cool. And it's only because you still got to go out and do it. And we go back to what we've been talking about this whole show, is that bite might be different the next day. You know, I see people a lot of times. I take them out, and then Pyramid, I was on this really good spoon bite. I took these guys out, and the very next day they had their boat out on that spot, and I was like,
that's good. Did your job.
It's a little tough, but
no, that's all right.
That bite's not always going to be there.
Hey.
I know I got 100 other spots, you know. So
I tell everybody, should have got up earlier. And then we're in the world of the sport, like, hey, you missed out. They got there early. What? You glossed over one thing, and I want to make sure people heard this right. And if I heard it right, you mentioned taking out professional anglers that are fishing on tour. That's a thing, and I don't think people really realize, like, oh, they go and they pick apart the lake. What a waste of time. If I'm fishing the tour and it's an open opportunity to go and practice and fish, and you have this chance even off season to get to know a lake, you fish every day. So I'm never going to be able to drive past Pyramid now on my way to Disneyland. I'm just like, oh my gosh, I got to stop. I'm going to have to try to fish there. But How often does that happen? How often are you taking out professional anglers to educate them about the local lakes before they have a tour event?
Yeah, so it's not so much at Casitas because I'll explain. Casitas is a clean lake, no quagga mussel, no zebra mussel, and it's a 35-day quarantine. So typically, what you're fishing there is a local derby. There's not a tour, but like Castaic and Pyramid, you're clean and dry. You go right in. So
Sure.
a lot of times I may be on a bite and somebody wants to pre-fish. They'll hire me to take them out and pre-fish and I help them out. Great. We've done that up in your neck of the woods too. We come up to one of these, like the Clear Lake, the some of the opens and stuff. We'll hire a guide and then they'll get us going for the first few days. And then we practice for 3 days. And then there's the off limits and go to the casino and then we have a great time at the
And I love it because I track the guys at local tournaments, and almost without a doubt, the guides that are out there fishing the opens, whatever, they do fine. They do great. Sometimes they win, and those guys, they just catch fish. They have it figured out. They know where the fish live. And like you said, you still have to go and catch them, but to understand the bite, what's going on currently, fishing those conditions, I just think you can't beat time on the water. And when Rick is working, what a cool resource for him to tie into somebody that's spending every day on the water. That's the perfect paired relationship. So that's really cool.
Well, there's another thing too, is that a lot of times, you probably know, it sound like a tournament fisherman. A lot of the times when you're pre-fishing, I'm not even fishing. I'm mapping.
You're eliminating water is what I always tell people. Like, you're trying to find out where the fish live to start. It's like, I know they're not there. There's nothing that's bringing a fish there. I can't believe that we fish that for so long is what oftentimes happens, but it is mapping and finding. I'll tell you, I got beat by a guy that came out here in a kayak event from Utah, of all places, in Folsom, which is a pretty tough lake to fish. And they put the pros out there, and they do not do that well. And this guy came out, and he caught like 100 fish in one day on a kayak. And all he did is he studied maps for like a month before. He came in and figured out the spot and just duplicated the spot over and over, figured out the pattern, and crushed all of us. And that lake's 35 minutes from my house. And we're like, you're from...
Sometimes, though, I think of it this way: is this guy comes in, he doesn't know the dope what the baits are supposed to be doing. He's like, that you're gonna you need an LV. You got to pull through you got to rip that grass, man. You're gonna get this fish. And this guy didn't hear this. He went out and looked, and he goes, "Well, I'm gonna spoon this ledge," and they're there. Because everybody's doing what they're supposed to be doing, So
and he's fishing. Yeah, he's like, I'm fishing a fish that's been around for millions of years, and I'm just going to fish it how a fish would eat. And if I put it in front of fish, that is a really fun part too. Is you can guide and you can put people on fish, and right next to you, somebody can use a different technique. And if they're plausible and it makes sense, you look at what the tour guys, the top 10, very seldom are they catching fish on the same things. And you're like, they were just decent offerings into an area where there were fish that were feeding. So it's kind of fun to see all that. But what did you have a favorite technique when you're fishing or with your clients? What's some of your top 5 techniques that you like to see people catch fish on?
We run through the techniques pretty good, but I would say the most of the time we're using probably a worm, various ways we're using a worm. A small swim bait, 2.8 to 4 inch, and if we're going to use a topwater or a popper, we go from there. If they can cast and they're good with a topwater or a hard bait, well, maybe they can throw a jerk bait, or some of the guys I take from the salt love to throw spinner baits in the junk because it's like burning swim baits through the kelp.
So that's snag and release. You're like, it works really good. By the way, that is an evading fish that's bouncing off something and swimming fast.
Heavy stick, 65-pound braid. It's very comfortable for them. So we'll do some stuff like that. Finesse to as big as it gets. We're all over the place. I mean, my claim to fame is, you fish with me 4 times a year in all 4 seasons. You're going to do something completely different. I'm not going to take you. We're not going to do the same thing all day, every day.
Well, that's the mantra of the Monster Bass. You got these different baits regionally chosen, and it gives you the different water columns. You can attack fish however you want. So that's kind of a fun. You got the right guide, Rick. This is like a match made in heaven. This is cool.
I know, and I like what you just said, the right water column. I'm usually set with something for three different water columns: top, center, and the bottom. You know,
That's cool.
yeah, usually, and whatever it's not working, we start putting away and bringing more out of the other thing. You know.
Yeah, what's your bottom water column? With a lake that's 300 feet deep, are you catching fish at 100 feet? I hate that. After, I'm going to say 55, 60 feet, I think it's ADHD or whatever. I haven't been diagnosed yet, but I don't have a lot of patience to fish that deep. Where is your bottom end? Like, where are you catching fish? 50, 60, 100 feet? What do you talk about when you're talking
well,
about
my deepest largemouth bass is 71 feet, and that was on a jig.
Wow.
Yeah,
Good.
it was 71 feet. But I would not recommend you fishing deep water unless you learn how to fizz a fish.
That's good. That was question 2. Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, you got to fizz a fish, and that's not always foolproof either, because sometimes the air in the brain will expand as well, and their eyes pop. So if that happens, yeah, so
eat it. That's when you cook. You better cook that fish, yeah, or
let it go,
or let it go, and it feeds other stuff. It feeds crawdads.
If you can fizz the air bladder and get that fish while it's still strong, it'll get down there and it'll go back. I mean, they do it in saltwater all the time. You know?
Do you want to explain that? You want to
explain fizzing?
Yeah, explain that.
I have. Okay, well, fizzing is you're using basically a larger hypodermic type needle to release the air out of its swim bladder, and most fizz needles have a diagram or something to show you how to do that. And if I could do a shameless plug, I have a video on YouTube where I explain how to do it. There's 2 ways you can go down through the crushers of the fish. It's the most dangerous way, but for me, it's the most effective way. You hit that swim bladder every single time.
That's the noise it makes. Rick, your breath was the noise. Yeah, that deep breath, that was perfect. Good time.
It'll go. Yeah, if I do it on the bow, you could hear it on the stern sometimes. It's so loud. You know.
Really?
Yeah, we fizzed a lot of fish this week. First fish we've had to fizz, I think, in a while, because you have to do it in the summer as well sometimes, you know, especially if you get these summertime bass where the water's 85, 87 degrees on the surface. Those fish are down. You'll see the thermocline in 40 feet, and you're like, can't be, it's summertime. That's where they're at, you know, and you're
no oxygen up top. It's like, that's the whole thing. Like, we talk a lot about that. You're drawing this water in your live well. It's super hot. It's not a lot of oxygen, and you're pulling these fish up from down below, and like, you're suffocating them by throwing in a live well. So it's I won't name the pro because he's one of the top pros of Major League Fishing, but we were fishing a local tournament, and the fish, you could tell the bladder, a kid brought it into the dock, and he took a rock, he opened its mouth and wedged a rock in the fish, and he set it in the water. He's like, we do this all the time. It'll just pull it back down. It'll kick the rock and swim away. And I'm like, I don't know about that physics.
I don't know about that.
I don't know if your viewers know this, but in saltwater, they have a release clip, and it's a dial of depth, and you can just dial it to where it releases. So if it's 40 feet, you put it on 40, you clip it on the fish. It's like a boca grip. You drop it down, and it releases at 40 feet, and the fish makes it. It was
I teased with him. I said, "You're doing a saltwater release trick," and he was dropping it with the rock. Same kind of thing. It's kind of cool.
Yeah, they used to count off rope in like buckets or whatever they did. You know, the milk crates or something, and count off the rope and shake it and open it up. Real crude back before they invented that thing. You know,
back before line counters and different color braid and all the things that tell you exactly where the fish are. It's kind of fun. Yeah. They did the best they could. Yeah, but once with the mouth and the tongue is out and the eyes are bulged, you know, you decide you eat that or you throw that out to the crawdads or something. So that's all good.
So Fred, do you have? Are you watching the World Series?
I am watching the World Series. My daughter's been trying to call me. That's who I've been watching it with. She's a big time Dodgers fan.
Wow, nice. I think the game started 6 minutes ago, and I want to be respectful of the time. I don't want to let you get going to it.
Well, I'm having a blast with you guys. If I could do a couple shameless plugs, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, please do.
Okay. Yeah, so you guys, I fish 364 days a year, 3 lakes, 3 boats, multi-species. My website is www.fredklinshawfishing.com. You can book online. All the information's there. The lakes we fish, what to expect, pretty much everything. And if there's something on there you don't understand or you need help, you can hit me up on Instagram. Just go send a DM to the Hammer of Fury. You could also find it by my name, or you can text me. My number's on the website. Just text me. I'll get back to you. But keep in mind, I am a busy guide, and I'm out. I don't get back usually. I get texts, 7 in the morning, 8 in the morning, and I don't get back till 5 or 6 o'clock at night sometimes. So just be patient with that. But yeah, I'd love to take you fishing. You guys are awesome. Rick, I can't wait for our next trip, bro.
Can't wait, man. Can't wait.
I'm coming down. I'm joining. I'm just Rick's gonna come and show up one day, and I'm stowed away in his bag. The worst thing that angler. Chris is coming along on a trip because I want to go fishing.
Well, Chris, you're coming back down to LA. Stop me. We'll hit up one of the lakes on the 5. That'd be fun.
Cool, for sure.
Yeah,
we'll connect.
Sure. Yeah. All right, last question before I let you go. Sure. Stone Cold or The Rock?
Stone Cold or The Rock? Oh, Stone Cold.
There you go.
Stone Cold for sure. Yeah, for sure. Why? Who is that? You two guys?
No, that's me.
No, not you. But I mean, you're Stone Cold and he's The Rock, or what?
No. I'm just curious to know who you like better, Stone Cold or The Rock.
No, it's got to be the country boy, man. Even though I'm a West Coast SoCal guy, it's got to be.
Dude, West Coast SoCal, and he's bass fishing. The Rock is the man. So, but hey, that's good. We got to have our own opinions. I like it.
Well, is he really?
Is he really? Great question.
Is he really? Hey, Hollywood. I have no idea, but we're all good.
Great question. Well, listen, Fred, man, I really appreciate you coming on the show. I'm glad we caught you on a day off and or in the afternoon, and you were able to, come on the show. I really appreciate it. Really appreciate you taking the time out, letting me film, and I'm looking forward to the next time we hit the water.
Oh man, we're gonna have a lot of fun in the future for sure. Thanks, guys. And
no problem. Once again, what's your Instagram?
Yep, Instagram is the Hammer of Fury, or just type in my name; it'll come up. And www.fredklinshawfishing.com. And there's a Facebook too, but I'm not on Facebook much. So if you try to get me there, the pictures from Instagram go right to it, but I probably won't get back to you there.
Right on. Well, listen, thanks a lot, man, and have a good night.
Okay, you too. Thank you,
All right,
guys.
take care.
Bye.
There you go.
That's cool. He's a good guy. He's like that. To get a guide like that it's that in tune with the water, but just a fun guide as well. I think that's that whole piece of what a fun opportunity for you to connect with him and to be close.
Yeah.
And you're in for it. You're going to have a fun time. That's a lifetime relationship right there. What a good dude.
Yeah, totally. And that was one of the reasons why I didn't even bother bringing cameras the first time, because I was like, I just want to feel it out, see if I gel with this guy. And yeah, he's a good guy.
That's gonna be fun.
Yeah. So,
well, what else we got? We got gold. You doing gold tickets? We got videos of the week or something. I could talk to that guy all day. Him and I. You're right. We got a lot in common.
Yeah.
And it seems like he likes being outside, but catching fish. I love his answer. I think the most important thing to take away is he lit up when I asked him about watching other people fish. Mm-hmm. Truly, there's certain people that are teachers, and there's certain people that get excited about that. And he's one of those people, like, he's in it for other people's experiences. So that's a special opportunity to be connected to him. But
totally. So I think at this point, what I want to do is I want to jump over to the trophy room. And, as you guys know, we love to celebrate your wins. And if you've got a catch that you're proud of, whether it's your PB or just whatever you caught this weekend, head over to monsterbass.com/PB, upload your pick. And if we use them, we'll send you a little something. I saw a few comments from some people that finally got their AOL packages. You're welcome. And like I said, you're not really the minority. There was like a lot of people with AOL.com email addresses. So, anyways, let's head over to let's see what we got this week. All right, first up we got Anthony Diaz, 4 pounds 8 ounces out of Connecticut on an Evo chatterbait with his wife or
his companion. Yeah, whoever that is, I give it a piece. I like it.
Yeah,
that's a good shot.
Next up, we got Scott Ellerman, 8 pounds 2 ounces. Well, it's got a huge mouth. I can't see the rest of it. Looks like he's
hugging it. He's a Heisman Trophy in that thing.
Totally,
so that's all right.
Totally. Looks like a guy that was on my men's team for about 3 weeks. Next up is Brandon Wiley, 5 pounds 4 ounces on. Oh, he caught it on a blade burner spinner bait. Great bait color. I like that. And then Mark Allen, 5 pounds 10 ounces. That bass doesn't look so healthy.
No, that's a good looking. That's a nice little smallie, little brownie. That's a good one.
Does it? Maybe it's just the picture I'm looking at.
Now that looks. I mean, if it's a 5'10" smallmouth,
5'10".
that's 5'10" smallie. That's a big fish.
Yeah. And then clearly someone who's going to eat it.
I was gonna say that fish doesn't look like it's gonna have another day in the water. So 7 pounds 6
7
ounces.
pounds 6 ounces from.
That's a big dinner right there.
Yeah, totally.
I love it.
Totally.
Oh.
Oh goodness! All
Let's
right,
see yeah, I'm telling. Like, have you followed that at all? Because I think it's one thing. It's like Lake B. Like, you've got this lake over in Japan that's catch and kill only, and the fish that are coming out of there are crazy big right now. So it'll be interesting to see what happens over there in the next 3, 4, 5 years.
Totally.
So I don't know.
All right. So just as a reminder, if you like what you see, you can subscribe and never miss an episode. We're available on Apple, Amazon, Spotify, or wherever you like to subscribe to your podcasts. You can give us a follow, and we'll let you know when there's another episode. Let's bring Rafi in, and let's have a look at the clip of the week. How you doing, Rafi?
I think you got to unmute me, right? Oh, you did. All right. I'm doing great. I'm really excited to meet Fred and to talk to him. I have so many questions that I've been writing down about fishing and guiding, and I'm really excited.
Nice.
Yeah, how are you guys doing?
We're good.
All right, so we got a clip of the week. All right, so this one I like. It's not a fishing video per se, but it's a comedian video about fishing. And I thought it was funny because the first time I heard it, I was unfamiliar with catch and release. And this guy kind of puts it into words for me.
You know, on TV, when they have a fishing show on TV, they catch the fish, but they let it go. They don't want to eat the fish, but they do want to make it late for something. Where were you? I got caught. Liar, let me see the inside of your lip.
I like
Yeah.
it.
I don't know. I like that. I miss Mitch Hedberg. He was like, what, the Kurt Cobain of comedy, kind of, or at least maybe down to the addiction issues. But
his delivery is good. I love the delivery.
Yeah.
That's a great joke. I always wonder what fish you're talking about, because they got to come back. Like, they're pulling them off and they're chasing and seeing what somebody else has caught, and then they come back and they talk about fishing pressure. Something has to be clicking. Those fish have to communicate. Like, don't eat that thing. So there's a reason why baits don't work after they've been used and seen a lot. So that was a good one. Good clip.
yeah, it reminded me of like the first time I kind of pulled Rick aside, and I'm like, this catch and release thing, it doesn't make any sense. And he's like, have you ever gone golfing? I said, yeah. He's like, when you get the ball in the hole, do you dig up the hole and bring it home, or do you just have fun and then leave? And I'm like, that's actually a really good point.
Yeah. It's like, oh, well, let them grow. Let them grow. So you eat them later.
Yeah.
That's always tell everybody. Like, oh, it'll get bigger. It'll be a better meal. That's fine.
Yeah, like no one's hungry ever.
That's fine.
All right.
0-0. I'm out of here.
That's it. One? I thought we were one. I like it.
All I got is one, and I heard the all right Rafi, so away I go.
Oh, there
One
you
and
go.
done. Fair enough.
Yeah, one and done for today. We gotta end this show quickly so that we can get to the World Series.
Yeah, baseball. No.
And wait a minute, someone just said Yankees 3, Dodgers 0, back-to-back home runs.
Wow.
All right, Chris. Well, it was a great show, and we'll let you go. Are you watching the World Series, or you don't care?
I'm not. I just it's one of those things that my family was Dodgers. I was born in Southern California. We moved to Texas. I fell in love with the Astros when I was a kid, and it's not like I support them now. But I think I'm just too distracted. I'm working on my lower print shop. I've got some stuff to build, so I got to get to work. But yeah, it was a blast. I want to go fish with you and with Fred. What a cool thing. What a cool dude. So
I actually booked a trip for Coley, Rafi, and myself.
Oh, fun.
I literally went in and, whether or not this is going to work out, I looked at like the fishing almanac for the best days in 2025, and I picked literally all the best days according to the calendar. It'll probably rain every day, but we'll see what happens.
You got to go for it. No, that's cool. So I will definitely let you know if we plan a trip down south. We got to coordinate, because that guy seems like a lot of fun.
Yeah,
be cool.
He's a good guy. All right, man. Have a good night.
All right, you too. Take care.
All right, bye. All right, guys. It was a great show. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Yes, Richard, there is a golden ticket. However, the problem I'm finding is that it looks like only 30 people actually like the show, which is kind of, I might need to call my therapist. 30 likes. All right, well, listen, we're gonna do two things before we go. I'm gonna give you my picks of the week because I'm pretty proud. Last week I went 4-1. This week I'm going with Texas A&M over South Carolina, the Vikings over the Colts, the Rams over Seattle, and the Falcons over the Cowboys. And I want to be the first to give permission to Jerry Jones to just fire the coach. They've got the second worst defense, the worst run offense. You've got a team that should be leading their division, and they're garbage. They're absolute garbage, and they're garbage because Coach Mike McCarthy is the absolute worst offensive play caller in the league. And it's about time that they get rid of him. So, all right, golden ticket number. And then I'll let you all go so you can watch the World Series. Golden ticket. Oh, there it is. Ready? Golden ticket number is 7852. That's 7852. If you've got that number, email me at marketing@monsterbass.com. Take a picture of you and the ticket. Make sure you give me your phone number and address so I can contact you and I can send you something. And we'll make sure we get something out for you right away. So have a great week, and we'll see you next week.